Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Thomas Mitchell grew up surrounded by everything money could buy. He was the heir to one of the wealthiest families in the state, the grandson of a real estate tycoon, and the only child of a man who turned the family fortune into an investment empire. Thomas's life had always been wrapped in luxury, prestige, and expectations. But contrary to what many imagined, he didn't become an arrogant or distant man. He was kind, centered, and above all, discreet. And it was precisely because of that when he met Amanda, he was enchanted. She was different from the women who orbited his reality. She had a light way of conversing, a firm posture without being intrusive, and an almost artisanal care for the small details of life. In their first few meetings, Amanda seemed more interested in the stories of his childhood than in the numbers in his bank account. For Thomas, this was rare, and enough. Their marriage was celebrated like a modern fairy tale. She began frequenting the same social circles as the elite effortlessly, winning everyone over with her kindness. Amanda remembered dates, brought flowers to family lunches, and always made sure to serve her mother-in-law's favorite dish during every visit. Always well presented, polite, and with an enviable ability to lighten any atmosphere. Over time, she gained not only Thomas's complete trust but also that of his parents, who saw in her a balanced, companionate, and caring woman. In everyone's eyes, Amanda was perfect. And for a long time, Thomas believed it with all his heart. However, some behaviors started to trigger small warnings. Amanda began going out frequently for meetings with friends from the gym. Sometimes, she said they were having lunch after yoga, other times she mentioned visiting a new spa or trying out a Pilates class in another neighborhood. Entire afternoons disappeared on these outings, which at first seemed harmless. Thomas, accustomed to his wife's free routine, didn't question it. He observed everything silently, trying to believe it was just a phase. But the discomfort only grew. The change in her gestures of affection was subtle but constant. She stopped sending the loving messages she used to write in the morning. The hugs before bed were replaced by short phrases about being tired. Thomas tried to justify it. Maybe the routine was wearing down the marriage, as happens with any couple. There was one day, in particular, that stuck in his mind. She was in the kitchen, preparing coffee, and her phone vibrated. When he approached, Amanda turned it face down on the counter and, as if nothing had happened, changed the subject. It was a simple gesture, but cold. A gesture that hides something. Then, Thomas began pretending to believe her. But deep down, he was no longer sleeping peacefully. He started paying closer attention. He noticed how Amanda kept her cell phone with her even inside the bathroom. It was on a Wednesday night that he felt he needed to do something. Amanda said she was going out to dinner with two friends from the gym and explained that one of them was going through a complicated separation process and wanted to talk. Therefore, she might take a little longer to return. The explanation seemed reasonable, and she spoke with such naturalness that she almost convinced him. But as soon as the door closed behind her, Thomas remained still for a few seconds, as if something inside him was silently breaking apart. He walked to the couch, sat down, and stayed there, staring into space with the phone in his hands, feeling his stomach churn. Doubt weighed heavier with each passing minute, and despite being surrounded by wealth, prestige, and comfort, he found himself like any other man facing the suspicion of betrayal. A billionaire heir who, at that moment, couldn't control even his own heart. The next morning, he made a decision that, until then, he never imagined he would make. He contacted a private investigator. It wasn't easy. He felt ashamed of himself. He was used to solving his problems with elegance, with arguments. Hiring someone to follow his wife seemed like a desperate, low move. But it was either that or go crazy. He requested absolute discretion. He provided information, schedules, photos, frequent places. After that, he continued his routine as if nothing was happening. Amanda woke up by his side, smiled, prepared breakfast, told him she loved him, and he pretended to believe her, pretended not to notice the longer silences, the empty looks, the disguised absences. While waiting for the detective's return, Thomas spiraled into doubts. Maybe it was all paranoia. Maybe he was exaggerating. Maybe he was committing the greatest injustice of his life. But at the same time, a part of him screamed that it wasn't madness. That something had truly changed. And that behind that controlled smile, Amanda was hiding more than just fatigue or work-related worries. She was hiding secrets. And Thomas was determined to uncover them. Even if it cost him his heart. Thomas came home early that Friday. He cancelled an important meeting just to answer the detective's call. The message was clear: he had what Thomas needed to see. When the man appeared at the gate of the house, he handed over a discreet folder, saying nothing more than a serious look, the kind of look that says more than any words. Thomas went straight upstairs to the office and locked the door. He stood there for a while, holding the folder, as if it carried the weight of a bomb about to explode. He took a deep breath and, without ceremony, opened the seal. The photos were there. Printed on glossy paper, in high quality, organized in sequence. And still, he needed to look more than once to believe what he was seeing. Amanda looked beautiful, as always. Light dress, hair loose, flawless makeup. Sitting at a table in a secluded restaurant outside the city, with wine glasses and refined dishes. But what cut Thomas to the core was the way she smiled. Her expression conveyed intimacy, comfort, and lightness. This was the same woman who, days earlier, had said she would spend the night comforting a friend. And there she was, with her hands intertwined with those of another man. It was impossible to deny what it represented. The gesture spoke for itself. He flipped through each image with a growing tightness in his chest. In some, she leaned her body toward the man. In others, she smiled the way she did when they were alone, the way she used to look at him as if he were everything. And then, something inside him broke. Not just because of the betrayal, but because of the man's face. He knew that face. Not exactly where from or in what context, but there was something in that gaze, in that almost mocking smile, that brought an uncomfortable feeling, like an echo of something buried in the past. Thomas closed the folder, but the image wouldn't leave his mind. He picked up the phone, called the detective, and got straight to the point. He wanted to know everything about the man in the photos. The evidence wasn't enough. He needed to understand who Amanda was involved with and what it meant. 2 days passed before the investigator returned. He knocked on the door with a brown envelope in his hands and a more serious expression than usual. They sat face to face, and the detective got straight to the point. The man's name was Victor Hayes. An entrepreneur with a turbulent history, involved in financial scandals, fraudulent bankruptcies, and shady connections with shell companies. A name known in the dirty backrooms of the market. Someone who knew how to disappear when convenient and reappear only when there was something to gain. The type of man who doesn't show up by chance. But what really made Thomas's ground crumble was what came next. Victor Hayes had previously had a direct connection with Amanda. Not as a business partner. The history showed something deeper. Years before she met Thomas, when she still lived in another city, Amanda frequented the same social circles as Victor. There were records of events, trips, and even rumors that they had been very close, though never officially as a couple. The detective even found an old photo in a digital article about a charity event. Amanda, with a different hairstyle, a different style, standing next to Victor. Smiling. Just like in the restaurant photos. Thomas ran his hands over his face, trying to process the flood of information. Amanda had completely hidden this past. She never talked about Victor, never mentioned that city, the events, or the friendships from that time. It was as if she had started a new life from the moment she met him. And for a long time, he believed she was exactly who she appeared to be. But now, everything seemed staged. Even the love. Even the marriage. The pain was replaced by a growing restlessness, like a wave about to break. It wasn't just betrayal. It was manipulation. Amanda knew what she was doing. She knew how to hide. She knew how to steer situations the way she wanted. If Victor had come back into her life, and if that meeting was as casual as she claimed in the lies she told before leaving, why specifically that man? Why someone from her past, with a shady history, whom she worked so hard to erase? Thomas stood up and began pacing. He tried to organize his thoughts, but everything came jumbled. The years alongside Amanda seemed to flash before him like a distorted movie, full of plot holes, scenes that now took on a different meaning. Every exaggerated compliment, every affectionate gesture in front of others, every sweet word now seemed like a carefully trained tactic to keep him exactly where she wanted him, blind. He looked at the photos again. One of them, in particular, made him stop. Amanda was looking at Victor with an expression of absolute trust. As if she felt safe there, as if that moment were familiar, comfortable, intimate. It was the look of someone who deeply understood who was in front of her. Because he had never seen Amanda look at him that way. The questions wouldn't stop coming. How long had this been going on? Did Amanda choose him out of love or convenience? Was Victor there by chance or as part of a calculated return? Thomas felt the ground crumbling beneath his feet, and with each new discovery, a certainty formed: he never really knew the woman he had slept beside for so many years. What began as a simple doubt was transforming into a revelation that would unravel everything. And deep down, he knew, this was only the beginning. Victor Hayes's presence next to Amanda couldn't be treated as a coincidence. Something about that meeting seemed old, rooted, and nothing in her expression indicated guilt or regret, only familiarity. This wasn't the start of an affair, it was the continuation of something that already existed. When the detective handed over Victor's name and history, Thomas didn't hesitate. He asked him to investigate Amanda thoroughly, without limits. He wanted everything. From her birth certificate to any movements in previous cities, travel records, photos, acquaintances, jobs, debts, relationships, names used, everything she was or had been. He told the detective to use all the resources needed: access to databases, contacts at registry offices, people infiltrated in companies or public agencies. The budget was irrelevant. For the first time in his life, Thomas felt real fear about what he might discover. For days, the silence between him and Amanda was terrifying. She continued with her usual routine, smiling in the morning, going to the gym, kissing him on the cheek when leaving the house, returning with new shopping bags, sitting on the couch next to him, and making comments about series or irrelevant news. She acted as if everything was perfectly in place, as if there weren't photos locked in a drawer in the office, as if the charade was still working. Thomas observed. In silence. He mentally noted her schedules, the repeated excuses, the names she mentioned, the places she said she visited. Every detail was now a piece in a game he never knew he was playing. On Thursday of the following week, the detective showed up again. This time, he brought a box with folders, documents, prints of old files, scanned photos, copies of public records, and even a USB drive with videos and audios obtained with special authorization. Thomas spent the night immersed in that material. Gradually, Amanda's life unfolded before him like a script written by someone with a talent for disappearing. He discovered that her full name wasn't Amanda Brooks. Born in another city under a different surname, she had changed her identity shortly before meeting Thomas. Everything had started about 8 years earlier, when she was still known as Claire Dawson. Claire was her real name. Amanda was the name she chose to start over. According to the records, Claire had been married to an older businessman named Richard West, owner of a technology company that failed strangely and quickly after his sudden death. According to the documents, Richard died in a domestic accident, a fall down the stairs. But there was a strange detail: weeks before his death, he had changed his will, removing Claire as the direct beneficiary and leaving everything to his 2 children from his first marriage. The investigation suggested that Claire had attempted to contest the will, but the judge denied her request. Not long after that, she vanished from the city. The identity change followed. Thomas found copies of forged documents, created by a man who is now serving time for forgery. Claire Dawson became Amanda Brooks, and for the next 2 years, there was no trace of her anywhere. No rental agreements, no gym memberships, no utility bills, no registered flights at airports. It was as if she had disappeared off the map. And when she reappeared, it was in another state, with a new look, a new story, and a rehearsed speech that seemed calculated to attract exactly the type of man Thomas was: rich, educated, emotionally stable, and from an influential family. The investigation also revealed that she had used a different phone number until just a few months before meeting him. And that number was linked to contacts with Victor Hayes. They had exchanged dozens of messages in the past, some still recoverable. There were prints of short, objective dialogues, and other more personal conversations, with phrases indicating not just business but intimate involvement. The most disturbing part was that the last conversation between them, according to the detective, dated back to a week before Amanda crossed paths with Thomas for the first time, at a charity event hosted by a family friend. Thomas reread every page, every line, trying to understand how far Amanda had planned everything. Nothing seemed left to chance. From the way she approached him, the tone of voice she used in the first conversations, to the shared interests that seemed spontaneous, all built on information she somehow gathered about him. Her personality adapted to the need. And the scariest part was realizing that during all those years of marriage, he had shared his life with someone he didn't know. In one of the reports, the detective mentioned speaking with a former colleague of Amanda's, or rather, of Claire's, who said a phrase that stuck in Thomas's mind: she's the type who disappears when she doesn't get what she wants, and reappears when she finds something more profitable. That resonated like a sentence. Their marriage, which Thomas believed was built on love, complicity, and partnership, now appeared as a cold piece in a larger game. Amanda wasn't a woman lost in a slip-up. She was an architect of plots. She knew how to conceal, manipulate, and seduce with surgical precision. With every new detail, Thomas felt more distant from his own story. It was as if he had lived a character written by her. Her laughter, the unexpected caresses, the soft advice she gave during difficult moments, all now seemed part of a script she followed with discipline. And Victor? He wasn't just the lover. He was part of the foundation of this lie. A key piece that returned now because perhaps Amanda was about to take another step in her plan, a step Thomas still couldn't foresee. But something in him changed. The shock gave way to coldness. Now he saw everything with different eyes. Amanda still smiled, still kissed him in the morning, still served him his favorite coffee, as if nothing was happening. But now, he knew exactly what she was. And the game, for him, wasn't over yet. Claire Dawson was born in a small town, the daughter of a mechanic and a primary school teacher. From an early age, she learned to observe people's behavior, measure her words, and smile at the right time. While other girls at school worried about clothes or parties, Claire watched adults, imitated their expressions, and figured out how to manipulate conversations to her advantage. She was intelligent, beautiful, and knew it. At 22, she got a job as a receptionist at a tech company. There, she met Richard West, the founder of the company, an influential man more than 20 years older. Within less than a year, Claire won him over, married him, and began attending galas, business events, and enjoying a comfortable life, a life she had never had before and vowed she would never lose again. To the outside world, the marriage seemed stable. Claire always presented herself as a present, discreet, and loyal wife. But a more attentive look would reveal signs. While Richard spent hours immersed in meetings and business strategies, Claire studied the flow of money, understood how contracts worked, and discovered the vulnerable points of his companies. She never showed direct interest in business, but she maintained targeted conversations with the lawyers and accountants orbiting her husband's empire. It was during this period that she grew closer to Victor Hayes, a business partner of Richard's, known for his shady tactics and sharp eye for illegal opportunities. Victor and Claire began meeting discreetly. First to discuss investments, then to talk about possibilities of asset diversion, and finally to plan something much bigger. Living with Richard was reaching its limit. He suspected their growing closeness and began changing his financial movements. Without warning, he altered his will, removing Claire as the direct beneficiary and transferring all assets to the children from his first marriage. A few weeks later, Richard fell down the stairs of the house they lived in. Forensics concluded it was an accident, but his children always claimed something was wrong, though they couldn't prove it. After Richard's death, Claire tried to overturn the will, but her request was denied by the courts. With no access to the fortune she believed she deserved, she disappeared. She moved states, changed her name, cut ties, and erased traces. Claire Dawson became Amanda Brooks. With forged documents, she began living as an ordinary, discreet woman, with no connection to her past. For 2 years, she lived off the radar until, through old contacts, including Victor, she learned of Thomas Mitchell's existence. The heir to a billionaire fortune, discreet, lonely, emotionally vulnerable. An ideal target. Amanda prepared to meet him, studying his history, preferences, and social circles in depth. When her reunion with Victor happened, it wasn't a coincidence, it was part of a carefully orchestrated plan. The day after discovering the entire truth, Thomas received an unexpected call from the detective. The voice on the other end was tense, firm, almost breathless. He asked to meet as soon as possible, citing urgency. Thomas authorized him to come to the house. As soon as they reached the office, the detective locked the door and placed a new folder, smaller but with even more significant weight than the previous ones, on the desk. With a direct look, he was categorical: Amanda, or rather, Claire Dawson, is being sought by the police. My contacts confirmed less than an hour ago. There are open warrants for suspicions of financial fraud, money laundering, and forgery. And there are new elements linking her to other ongoing investigations. Thomas didn't hesitate. He immediately stood up, called the family's law firm, and activated his legal team. He ordered them to block all cards linked to Amanda's name, cancel banking accesses, restrict her document in all internal company systems, and activate security measures at his residence. Then, he contacted the police, who arrived at his house in a discreet patrol car. The agents positioned themselves strategically and waited. Thomas, in silence, merely watched the clock. Amanda had gone out for a special yoga session with her gym friends, but he knew it was just another of her many rehearsed stories. Hours later, she arrived smiling, with her bag on her shoulder and a relaxed face. Upon seeing the patrol car and the officers in the entrance hall, she froze. She asked what was happening. The officers approached her cautiously and presented the arrest warrant. Amanda tried to deny it, pretending to be surprised, saying there must be some mistake. Thomas stepped forward with the folders in his hands. He showed her documents, photos, message screenshots, and records of the past she had tried to erase. Amanda looked at everything, trembling. She tried to maintain her composure but broke down. She started crying, covered her face with her hands, and between sobs, said she was being blackmailed by Victor Hayes. That he had reappeared and was constantly threatening her. She said he had photos, old information, and threatened to involve her parents, even though their relationship had ended. She claimed she did all this to protect herself. The words were strong but unconvincing. The narrative seemed fabricated, too fragile against the robust evidence surrounding her. At the police station, during formal questioning, Amanda eventually caved under pressure. She revealed where Victor was staying, in a luxury hotel, under a fake name, downtown. The police acted quickly. Hours later, Victor was arrested, with fake documents, cloned credit cards, and a laptop containing detailed records of illegal activities. His name was already on a wanted list in 3 states. Thomas's lawyers acted swiftly. Based on the forged documents Amanda had used to formalize the marriage, they successfully argued forgery in court and had the union annulled. In record time, Thomas found himself free. No need for divorce, no division of assets, no ties to the woman who destroyed the trust he once had in love. For the first time in weeks, he breathed firmly, not because everything was resolved, but because, finally, he knew who he had married, and, more importantly, he knew he was no longer a prisoner of this lie.
Suspicious of your wife or daughter-in-law? Don't go through what we saw in the video. Check the link in the comments and get the ebook with valuable tips and investigator-approved sites to clear your doubts.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.